Yo, what's going on? It's your man Jose, aka the Dominican Dream, alongside
It's your boy, the Maniac.
for the boxing roundtable, and we are ready to talk boxing. We've been
Boxing.
MIA, we've been MIA for a couple of weeks, but we here nonetheless. We back at it, and there's a lot going on in boxing. We weren't around to cover the melee card or the circus card, at least the main event, which was Tyson versus Jake Paul. And I don't think you guys really needed us to cover that anyway because it's really was a circus of a fight as we predicted or we thought it would be. Now to talk about real fights, Oscar Valdez versus Navarrete, the rematch. We saw that happen this weekend, and we also saw Robeisy Ramirez versus Rafael Espinosa, the rematch, the long-awaited rematch, and something that we were looking forward to. Unfortunately, that was like a guaranteed banger. That was like a guaranteed another fight of the year, and it didn't live up to the expectation because of what occurred at the end. Robeisy Ramirez, and we'll talk about that fight first. Robeisy Ramirez says no more, no mas. He suffered an injury to the eye. He's alleging, and many people are alleging that it was an elbow. And yeah, Espinosa does use that elbow. I don't know if I saw a high impact, but he does use that elbow as a defense mechanism to illegally push fighters forward. It's a trick. Is a like Bernard Hopkins, Andre Ward, little tricks that you use that are not blatantly dirty or done with malice. But if you could get away with it, some people get away with things like that. Nonetheless, it seems to have affected Robeisy. Whether you think some people think it did affect them, some people think that it didn't. Me, instantaneously watching the fight in the moment, I thought he quit. I didn't like it. Um, it was tough for me to see. I saw the elbow. I saw him using the elbow, and even in the last fight, and Robeisy was complaining about that. Robeisy was complaining about a few things in this fight. He was complaining to the referee quite often, maybe because he already has such a physical disadvantage that he wants to try to make things as even a playing field as possible, given that he's already given so many inches away in height and reach. Keep in mind, this is boxing; they are the same weight class, so they weigh in at the same, so therefore they can fight no matter how much of a height difference there is. Um, what are your thoughts on that fight? What are your thoughts on how that fight culminated?
Yeah, man. So, like you mentioned, going into this fight, man, the rematch, it was a highly anticipated rematch because of how the first fight went, man. It was arguably fight of the year. I don't think it got it, but it was right up there, man. Just an action-packed fight back and forth. That was a coming out party for Rafael Espinosa because none of us knew who he was until that fight. Now, going into the rematch, right? Like you mentioned, as far as the elbow, there's a video circulating now through the internet that I believe in the fourth or the fifth round, you can kind of see an elbow kind of land on that right eye of Robeisy. Now, again, I'm not gonna sit here and say that um that was the sole reason. When you look how the fight was going, I mean, early on, Robeisy, I want to say about the first two, 3 rounds I gave to him. But I
He was
think
winning the
one,
fight. Honestly
yeah,
speaking, I was going for Espinosa. I like Espinosa. I like his style. I was rooting for him. I like Robeisy as well. He's a good dude, but I will be honest. I did see
no, it
Robeisy
was,
winning the fight.
yeah, he was. But what you started to see was Espinoza put pressure. And once I think he was filling them out. Plus, another thing to take into account, which is very rare now that they did show the weight of the fight night weight. And Espinoza was 144 pounds. And Robeisy, I believe, was 137 or 138. So, you
I mean,
had
that was
Espinoza.
a 6, 6, 7 pound advantage. That doesn't sound like something
No, no,
extraordinary.
no. But he's still. I'm just talking about you. He's a featherweight coming in as a welterweight night of the fight. And
Yes,
plus, you already got it
then if that's the case, Robeisy was coming in as a junior
Jun-
welterweight.
as a junior welterweight. So it's still like a weight class disparity. But the point is this, that, like you mentioned, they weigh in at 126, and that's all that matters. And Espinoza started to come on. He started landing them uppercuts. He started to let his hands go. The pressure, you could see the pressure coming. And I think Robeisy understood that. And once he landed that right to start the sixth round, and he just did the no mas, I found it odd, man. Look, again, it's not me in there. It's not my eye, so it's always gonna be easy to say. But I would say is that he should have at least tried to finish that round, and just to see, like, yo, you know what? I try. I'm not. I think it was too fast. Like, oh, that's it. Like, bro, yeah, it wasn't even shut. Yeah, you seen the little cookie, but it wasn't closed shut. We seen Valdez eye closed shut in the first fight with Navarrete. So, it was a quit. He quit. Now again, I'm not the one to call these fighters a pussy or a bitch. Listen, it's his health. He decided, look, I'm not gonna take extra punishment because we seen guys, right, that have sustained eye injuries, and Ugas and Kell Brook and who else? Margarito. And it ended up being bad for them. It didn't. Rest in peace, Israel Vasquez. He also suffered a bad broken orbital bone. So I think Ramirez did a business decision, and he said, "Listen, I'm just gonna fight to live another day." But he did quit, man, and I think a lot of it had to do with the pressure that Espinoza started to put on him.
Look, I mean, those are all very valid points, and I think good observations on your part. I will say that yeah, there might have been a turning point around when the fight uh, ended around before, which is the end of the fourth and fifth round. I think that's when uh, Espinosa was having a little more success. But me as an Espinosa fan and having just watched his previous two fights again, his first defense, his only defense now has been two. His only defense before that fight, and of course the fight where he won the title off of Robeisy. I saw a weaker Espinoza. I saw an Espinoza that might be affected, and I said no. I said nah. He's one of those guys that's just naturally skinny, lanky. He can make that weight, no problem. It looked like he might have to move to 130. I don't. The pop and the steam wasn't on his punches as they were in the first fight. The volume was way lower. The output. Robeisy was fighting smarter. He was ducking real low on him, which is a great tactic to use against tall fighters when you're already shorter, because now you're gonna make him come down to you, right? And then when he crouches down a little bit, and you get back up and you throw your punches, to try to take away some of that disadvantage. The fight was being fought at Robeisy's pace. He was winning the story of the fight, landing more punches at a high connect rate, more effective. I didn't like what I saw from Espinoza. Towards the end, yeah, he was turning it up, but we don't know whether he was going to maintain that or not. You say he weighed in at 144
For
pounds, but to me, physically, he looked stronger when he fought Robeisy the first time, and when he fought in his last fight, he looked fuller. In this fight, yeah, he might have regained the weight, but he didn't look. To me, he didn't look fuller. His body, he looked like he didn't really rehydrate. He didn't look like it. Sometimes that happens where you can physically see a fighter's healthy. Sometimes they rehydrate, but they're not healthy. For example, I'm sure when Benavidez fought Plant, where he wasn't healthy, he probably rehydrated to a crazy amount, but he didn't look like it because he looked bad. He looked horrible. And then in other fights where he weighed in less on fight night, he looked a bit stronger. So that's just nature, biology, the way the body works and rehydrates, especially when you play that game with your body that you do in boxing. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think much could be determined from that fight. You can speculate. Oh, I think Robeisy was on his way to a victory, or you can say, it's going to be the same story. The pressure was about to come on. We don't know. We don't know. I agree with you as far as how quickly he said no, no mas. But if you listen to the corner, I saw it again. I saw the broadcast in Spanish as well. I saw the English broadcast initially, and I saw the Spanish broadcast. And the Spanish broadcast in the corner, he says, I can't see. I can't see from my right eye. He caught me with an elbow, and Salas goes, vamos a ver, resuelve esto. Let's see. Then you're gonna have to do something about this. I don't know what to tell you, dog. We here, we fighting. So, you gotta do what you gotta do. But he did stay in the corner. That's before, I think, the fifth round. Before the fifth, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been from fifth to sixth, but I think it was before the fifth. And then he went and fought the fifth, and then in the sixth, that's when he probably mentioned it again, and he said, and he felt that one punch. He said no more. So he was mentioning it in the corner, and that kind of gave me a little more evidence as far as his side of the story once I saw the fight again. Nonetheless, I think there's ways, man. I think there's better ways of of ending fights. Of shit, do something, man. Do something dramatic. Make the referee pull him into the fight. Or try to sell that he hit you with an elbow again. Do something, but it seemed from him quitting so quickly that he just gave up at the first sign of at the first obstacle, right? At the first moment of that he had to go through something. So it's controversial, very controversial outcome to the fight. Something that was very, I was not pleased because that's the fight that I think most of us were really, really looking forward to. The other one was the icing on the cake. We'll take it. Sure, we didn't ask for the rematch, but why not if you're having it on the same card as Ramirez versus Espinoza, right? It's a great add-on. Nobody's gonna complain about that. They wound up, at least now I had they wound up stealing the night, and performing beautifully. A throwback performance from him. Maybe he's still not at his best. There's still, you can see some decline physically. He's they told him, hey, why don't you do uh you can hear in the broadcast, are you looking, would you like a nutritionist? Would you like a physical, like a strength and
Personal
conditioning
trainer,
coach? Yeah, no,
per,
strength and conditioning coach,
strength
nutrition.
and conditioning
He
coach.
says, nah, I'm gonna just keep eating my tacos and drinking my beer, and that's the way I make weight. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. All right. I mean, I respect it. I don't think it's the smartest thing, but I understand. He has his ways. He's stuck in his ways, but I think that would benefit him greatly. To have a strength and conditioning coach and maybe a nutritionist to just give him more longevity in the sport. He's never gonna be that dude with a six pack, right? He don't got the genetics for that. He's never gonna be that dude that's ripped, but he can look better than he does and perform better. He's already nasty. He's a problem. Dude is a problem. At 130, he's a problem. So on to that fight. Great performance from Navarrete. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a bit of a beatdown, to be honest. The rematch was not necessary. Uh, Valdez, was he's been a tough fighter. I think he's always been limited, and I think Navarrete style is just poison for him as well. And also, he's at the end of his career, a lot of wear and tear. In my opinion, it's over, man. He's done. He got to pack it up. He got to take. He's made good money. I know you've seen his properties in Mexico. He has like a ranch and animals and all that. And he did well for himself, man. He's young. He still got his wits about him. I say pack it up.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that fight, man, Navarrete, without a doubt, he went in there, man, and he didn't want to leave no doubt. I mean, we know there was no need for this rematch. I mean, he won the fight, no problem, the first time, but this time he won the way you could. The most definitive win in boxing is the stoppage. So he did that, and the way he did it in the fashion, he dominated from second one of the first round until the fight was over. and you just saw it coming, man. It was a slow death, and Valdez had no answer for Navarrete, man. Nothing. It's just nothing he could have done. And Navarrete looked at vintage Navarrete. He still looked like he could be a problem. I was one of the ones. I'm a big Navarrete fan, but I was one of the ones saying, "Yeah, man, it might be over for this dude." But based on what I saw on Saturday, no. And there was someone in the crowd that day, Dream, another titleist by the name of Oshaki Foster, who has no problem fighting Mexicans. We saw him in Cancun against Rocky Hernandez. He's been to New York to defend his title. He was in Jersey defending his title. This guy's from Houston. He's a road warrior. So, him fighting Navarrete in Arizona or anywhere won't be a problem. I think it's a good fight. If you ask me, I'm gonna favor Navarrete because I think Oshaki's just a fighter who just tends to put his hands in his pocket too much. But he does have dog in him. You have to bring it out, and Navarrete is the fighter that will bring the dog out in you in any fight. So to me, that'd be interesting. But I mean, what a performance by Navarrete! Again, he shows why he is must-watch TV.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Navarrete, man, for
And shout to
putting on.
Valdez, excuse me, and shout to Valdez. He's a warrior, man. He's another one that always brings it. But yeah, he should start to consider something, man. Regarding fighting. He might want to call it a day.
Yeah, I think it's over. And I saw that a few fights ago. Even in his last fight where he won against Liam Wilson, I didn't like the way he was reacting to punches. I didn't like the way how red his face gets. And you're gonna say, "Oh, you mean your face gets red from when you get punched?" No, but there's a certain look. There's a certain look that you have once you reach that stage where your damage barometer is we've seen it, not to compare because Cotto went through something different, but we've seen it with Cotto. There was a pre Margarito Cotto and a post Margarito Cotto, and he didn't respond. His face his didn't hold up well to punches after that. Right? You've seen the effects accumulate much quicker, and that also happens when your body has had enough as a fighter. And I've been seeing that from Valdez for at least 2 or 3 fights, and with this demolition of him. I think he should definitely call it a day. But it's his life, it's his career, and yeah, it's a bit of a contradictory statement that one can make when it comes to Valdez as far as shouting him out, right? We want to shout him out for being a warrior, and especially on that night, contrasting him to Robeisy and what he did, right? And I was one of them. Yo, the Valdez is a dog. Is a dog. He's going out like a champ. He's going out like a man. There were moments where he should have quit. Or his corner should have looked at least when that round ended. It should have definitely stopped the fight, and they could have stopped the fight the round before, right? But Mexicans, they let him keep going. But at the same time, we're talking about a guy who has tested positive for for banned substances in the past, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna give him credit, we're gonna give him merit, but this is the same dude that came in hot and not beat the shit out of Burchell, right? And he comes from a team that's already had a couple fighters pop dirty, so we it's kind of like, all right, well, who we giving shout out, who we giving credit to, does he really deserve it, etc. Even in this fight, he looked very physically fit, cut up, strong. I was thinking he might have been on that shit again, but it don't matter what he's on or what he's not. He's never gonna beat Navarrete. He was never gonna beat him, no matter what he
Yeah.
does. But nonetheless, yeah, shout out to him. He passed or not, what he's tested positive for or not. He's a dog. He's tough. Just like Shane Mosley, man. Just like uh, James Toney, man. Those are all guys that we love and we know they're great fighters, and they had their hiccups as well with banned substances, and they got popped. And those are guys that are probably for sure heading into the Hall of Fame if James Toney's not already in it. Now, like I said, next for Navarrete, you mentioned Oshaki Foster, great guy. I seen him there, like you mentioned, and he was pulling for Valdez. He was rooting for Valdez. He likes him personally, and he also got beat by Valdez in the amateurs. So he wanted to get that lick back. He said, as in the professional rankings, it didn't happen. And body language says a lot. Facial expressions say a lot. And the expression I saw on Oshaki was like, damn, this is not the outcome that I wanted. This is not the fighter I want to fight. He didn't look very thrilled, man. He looked very thrilled. He looked like Ray Leonard after when he was watching Tommy Hearns knocking people out, and they asked him, what do you think? And Ray Leonard, he fixed his tie. He said, I'm not scared of any man, but he was concerned because looking at this 6'1" welterweight knocking dudes out that right hand. And yes, he went on to beat him. Sugar Ray Leonard was great, but he was losing the fight. He was getting beat up in the fight, as a matter of fact. And he came back and as great as he is, just testament to his greatness and not Tommy out, but everybody ain't Sugar Ray, and Shoshaki ain't no Sugar Ray.
True.
Now, Oshaki, I think he has is styles make fights, man. I think he has a physical advantage because he's physically stronger. He's more fit. He's solid at the weight. He doesn't have the talent of a Navarrete. When I mean talent, I'm not talking about skill. I'm talking about natural talent. Navarrete knows how to fight. As awkward as he looks, he's a master of distance, Sean. When he throws, he knows where he's throwing, how he's throwing, and where he wants to hit you. Whether it's from close up, whether it's from afar, whether he's using a jab, whether he comes in without a jab and he comes in with that lead left hook uppercut that he throws. He knows
Crazy.
what he's doing in there. He knows what he's doing. And if you look at his percentage got to be off the charts because you barely see him. You don't see him miss a big number of punches. And also, looking at him defensively for a Mexican offensive fighter, he was having some pretty good defense in there, man. He has a lot of movement at the waist, man. He knows how to fight. Oshaki's probably a little more textbook, but not nearly as aggressive, not nearly as busy as Navarrete, and you can't beat Navarrete if you're not busy. It's just not going to happen unless Navarrete is having a night off. He looks bad, or he just didn't train for that. But he's on his way out. I can't see Oshaki beating him just off of doing what he always does. He's gonna have to do a little more than that, right? So, look, look at the last fight with Conceição. Most people thought Conceição won the fight, and that Oshaki Foster got the benefit of the doubt because of what happened in the last fight, where most people felt Oshaki got robbed. It happens. Sometimes judges award you for something that happened in the past, right? And when you look at Conceição, he had two fights that arguably should have gone his way, right? And then he fights this guy, and the fight shouldn't have gone his way, and they give it to him, and then he has a rematch, has a better performance than he did the first time, but then Oshaki gets the victory. So, that's boxing for you.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you compete in a sport that is judged by three men or three judges. I'm sorry. It's a subjective sport. But I do believe Oshaki could give him some problems because of his durability, how strong he is. I think Navarrete should just be busy in the fight and lay off a round or two when he can, but he has to be consistent. He has to be consistent, and he can't put on one of those dud performances that he did, like at 135 pounds. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Navarrete, but I do see Oshaki presenting problems to him in that fight, and I hope it happens, and I think it will happen. I don't see why it wouldn't happen. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
Oshaki has it.
Yeah. I think it happens. I
Yeah,
definitely do. It's a unification.
Yeah, Oshaki, exactly. Oshaki has the title. He has the title. So, make it happen. And shout out to Navarrete, man. Real fighters. And that's what we want to see. Now,
Before we move on, real quick. So you mentioned something.